Welcome to Reach Prevention of Targeted Violence podcast, where we embark on a journey of education and engaging conversations about targeted violence with community partners and experts in the field. In each episode, we are diving into the important discussions surrounding violence prevention. I am your host, Andy Martinez, a team member of the Reach Project, and I'm delighted to be with you today. The topic we want to explore today is bullying. Bullying, if left unattended, can sometimes escalate into acts of targeted violence, highlighting the urgency to create safe spaces for kids to break the cycle of violence. Joining us today is Mr. Hector Zamora. Mr. Zamora is a licensed social worker and has over 20 years of experience in higher education and 20 years of experience working in the adult and juvenile justice system. Mr. Zamora, thank you so much for your time today. Can you tell me a little bit about yourself?
Well, basically, I entered the criminal justice system first. I obtained my bachelor's in criminal justice here at Utah, and then went on to obtain my master's in social work as well. But working with offenders was one of my primary interests. Eventually, that took me then over to the juvenile justice system as well. And the challenges that youth face throughout their life, really, until they turn adult, was something that really interested me. And at the same time, I saw opportunities where we could improve the juvenile justice system to be more cognizant of the issues that they faced. And therefore, the bullying issue is something that definitely has been around for decades, of course, or one could argue centuries. But still, let's look at what's going on, especially recently when you have cyberbullying, which I know we'll talk about more.
And from your perspective, how is bullying typically defined?
When I look at bullying, there's various definitions that are out there. And one of the parts of that definition is considered the intentional misuse of power. Now, kids might say, well, what power do I have? And in reality, it comes in all certain forms. You know, when you think about power, whether it's their intelligence, their physique, their background, their status, whatever the case may be, but then they turn around and misuse that power in a way that can result in physical, verbal, or through social behavior, in the sense of way they alienate kids. But then at the same time, the impact that it has on children, whether it's physical, whether it's social, again, the way they interact with other youth, their friends and so forth, and or the psychological impact that it can have on them. So when you consider that, then bullying can be either through individual means, behaviors and so forth, or group, and or that individual could join the group. And so it can be delivered in different ways as far as what bullying involves. So you figure a generation ago, we primarily saw bullying happening in person. With the internet, that again changed. So now we see online or cyberbullying being a very definite concern, problem that we're facing. And it can be hidden or it can be obvious, you know, again, depending on how the bullying is being carried out. Now, most would argue that bullying is a repeated behavior. But one could argue that single events can also be bullying. That bully may have just chosen that kid for one time and gone to others. So that's a pretty long definition of bullying, but it covers a lot of the aspects of what goes on when somebody bullies.
And in your opinion, how has this definition evolved with the rise of social media and online platforms?
It really has taken on a whole new face, because when we look at cyberbullying and the impacts it's had, think about it. You could be cyberbullied by somebody thousands of miles away from you. And one of the different aspects of cyberbullying compared to what we may have thought of as traditional bullying in the past is it's 24/7. And then think about this. Have you ever seen a kid? Well, when I say kids, let's say middle school and above, though I understand it depends on the family. But have you ever seen a kid walking around without a phone? Think about the prevalence of cell phones. They're carrying with them the cyberbullying. And therefore that cyberbully could wind up being with them 24/7. So the constant versus a bully just being seen in their classroom, right? Or out on physical education time or on break or whatever the case may be. But when you consider cyberbullying, the relentlessness that that can have on a child, it really does bring a whole new evolving of what we considered bullying in the past, just going back 20, 30 years.
And following that, how prevalent do you think bullying is among youths today?
Well, when you look at some of the surveys that have come out, various statistics, one of the statistics showed that as many as 60% of youth have been cyberbullied. And unfortunately, the trends are showing that that's probably going to increase. Now, you would think, wow, 60% is already enough. But for it to be with the possibility of it increasing is a big concern. There was another statistic that showed that for middle school age cyberbullying, that it actually may double the risk of attempted suicides from those kids because of cyberbullying compared to non-victims. And so that's another concern as well. So we continue to see this issue, this concern evolving more in the negative side, and therefore the necessity and reason for reaching out to the schools, reaching out to the parents, the families, to be able to help them understand this needs to be monitored, but, kids need to be aware of it as well.
And can you share with us some common signs that someone may be experiencing bullying, whether that be in person or online?
There's various type of signs. When you look at whether it's social, psychological, even physical, and the physical to me would be the obvious, they've been assaulted, they've been pinched, hit, kicked, etc. So the physical abuse in a sense that they're going through because of bullying. On the psychological side, when you consider what kids may go through, some of the signs that parents want to pay attention to is the child having issues as far as not sleeping, having nightmares. Are they having stomach aches, headaches? What about their behaviors? Do they seem like they're avoiding the family and friends? Because normally what we tell students is that if that's happening, then something's going on with you. But that the people that know you best, your family and friends, you don't want them to see the changes. You don't want them to know why you're feeling what you're going through. The psychological impacts of creating anxiety, sadness, or fear, where they don't want to go to school, where they feel that that's where it's creating, especially if it's traditional or in-person bullying. But then the cyberbullying, again, 24/7. They could be at home, and what's going on there? They're trying to enjoy time with their friends and so forth, but that cyberbullying can insert itself. We've told kids that they may experience anger for no reason, and it's that built-up emotions of that anxiety and other feelings that they're going through because of the nature of bullying. And when it explodes, you might say, like a volcano, people are saying, well, why are you angry? Nobody did anything to you. Nothing was going on. So why did you feel angry at the time? Another physical sign that we can see in kids is, again, the lack of diet. And, they're not hungry, or the opposite of that, they get very hungry. And again, we ask parents to pay attention to that, to be able to look at what's going on. Some of the more negative sides of reactions that kids may have is that they're not feeling that they're worth much. Their self-esteem drops, or self-confidence drops. And yet parents may not pick up on that, or they may pick up on what's going on. They may pick up on, why is my child demonstrating that? At school, it could affect their academic performance, their involvement in extracurricular activities. Maybe they're not as motivated as they used to be. A child can also think about, well, it's my fault as to what's happening. And we want to make sure the kids understand it is not. But that could be also another reaction to what they're going through. So those are examples as to what we see, the different type of impacts that kids go through when they are experiencing bullying.
And I know you kind of dabbed on this a little bit, but can you talk to me a little bit more about the psychological and emotional effects of bullying and how they differ between traditional and online bullying?
One of the biggest impacts that we've seen is how kids respond psychologically, in the sense of they don't understand how to handle their emotions. The thoughts that they're having about the bullying, to the point that that's where we've seen an increase in those attempted suicides, and even some suicides that have been well publicized in the last couple of decades of kids that have committed suicide. That is, to me, one of the toughest parts of trying to ensure that we're getting the word out to the kids and the families, is that psychological impact resulting in attempted suicides, and unfortunately suicides actually to completion. And so to me, that's one of the biggest areas that we really need to work on, to help kids understand there are outlets for them.
And can you talk to me a little bit about the specific risk factors that make individuals more susceptible to being targets of bullying or engaging in bullying behavior?
As far as kids being susceptible, there's so many possibilities and variables out there. Could be physical in nature. Could be with the clothes you wear. It could be your status in society, your family, your income, your race, ethnicity, your religious preference, your sexual identity. There's all sorts of possibilities as to why did the bully select you to be bullied. One of the other aspects is your vulnerability. Does the bully believe they can get away with it? Do they believe that they can continue bullying you? Or, when they first tried to see, well, let's see what type of response I get. And once they see that the response is going to permit them to continue doing that, then we tend to see that susceptibility be something that's going to be with the child for quite a while, possibly. When you look at the possibilities of, all right, so why did the person become a bully? Well, we see some of what might be considered common information. What type of family life do they have? Are they themselves being abused? Were they also bullied when they were younger? Were there other type of factors that made them feel, well, I have to misuse this power that I have? Could it be group influence? Maybe they didn't start out as bully, but the group they're hanging with are bullies, and then therefore they themselves got involved with that as well. So there's different aspects that we look at, knowing that there's not, in my opinion, just one variable. There could be various type of contributing factors as to why kids are bullied and why one becomes a bully. Again, that's something we have to assess.
So this seems very concerning. Is there anything that schools can do to help? For example, how can schools create a safe environment to prevent bullying, both online and offline?
Schools can play a major role only because they have so much contact with the kids. I think offering educational programs for the children, for the families, in different ways that can be delivered, reaffirming to the children in the school that they can provide a safe environment because the teachers do care. The teachers are encouraging the children to talk about it, to report it, even if they're not the ones being bullied. To be able to have care medically, even because of the physical impacts that bullying may have. All those type of basic but important approaches can help the schools be that much more of a safe environment. I know that sounds kind of basic, but to me, that's where you should start out to ensure you have that. Now, some schools do have a form that kids can fill out, either identifying themselves or anonymously, to report bullying. So this way, again, in case they're concerned about being identified, then they can still proceed to report it. So there's different aspects we've seen schools have taken that do help to be able to try to curb bullying.
And what about bystanders? What role do you think bystanders play in bullying situations, and how can their involvement be either positive or negative?
Good question, Andy, because when you consider how a bystander might think, well, I'm not doing anything, I'm just watching, that's contributing to the bullying. It's almost like you're encouraging the bullying or the group to continue what they're doing. To see, hey, again, let's see if we can make you laugh or get excited about what's going on and so forth. So some of the recommendations for those that are observers in the area and so forth is don't stay and watch. Walk away from the bullying. Report it to an adult. Consider also that because of cyberbullying, that they may wind up getting messages where they're seeing a kid being criticized, shamed, and so forth. And so think about the possibilities of how they should not forward that, report that, let others know that need to know about how this is going on and so forth. Other considerations would be, how can I support the person that is being bullied? What can I do to help them be able to work through this, especially encourage them to go speak to an adult, to see who they can trust. And if that's not going to work, unfortunately, then they themselves need to have the courage to go and talk to an adult and let them know, look, this is what's going on. Somebody has to help this kid. They can also provide information to the kid who's being bullied. As we educate kids about different programs that are out there, different websites that they can access to educate themselves, different ways that people can address bullying, that's another way that kids can help themselves and help others as well to be able to address the bullying that they see and, again, not contribute to it.
I want to shift our focus to parents and educators. How can parents and educators effectively communicate with children and adolescents about the risks and consequences of bullying?
Some parents may not agree with this statement, but I think let's start out first with what helps you to be a good parent. Look at the parenting skills you need to be able to communicate with your child at the different ages they go through. It's not easy bringing up a child, okay? And learning parenting is not something you're just born with, in my opinion. Again, some parents may disagree. They feel they're maybe a natural parent. But to me, educating oneself, training oneself, understanding the differences of each and every child that they have. And from there, then, how do I develop a level of trust with my child so that they can feel comfortable coming to me? But kids being kids, they may feel more comfortable going to somebody else. All right, so how do you build a support network for your child? People that they feel comfortable going to. Family, friends, neighbors, other relatives that may help, even understanding what the school has to support them and so forth. So on the parent side, I really do believe start with the basics and then move forward from there. Parents need to educate themselves in order to understand what is bullying all about and the challenges in being able to monitor what's going on in the internet and all the access that goes on through cyberbullying so that the parent feels more capable and confident of being able to understand what may be happening. That then deals with the issue of privacy. A lot of parents feel, my kid has their privacy, they need to have their privacy, and they think that the privacy extends to the cell phone, to the computer, etc. Well, I disagree. When it's something that could be negative, I think parents still need to have an involvement that covers electronic communication. Just like they should be aware of who their child's friends are. or who they're hanging around with. To me, the parent needs to know that, needs to be involved in that. And that to me helps the parent to be that much more of an effective parent, especially in this area that we're talking about as far as bullying.
And last but not least, are there any strategies that individuals can employ to protect themselves from online bullying? And how can they seek help if needed?
It goes back to that basic development of trust. If we can help the child understand that there are adults out there that they can trust, then that helps for the intervention process. But then at the same time, that goes back to we need to make sure the adults are already understanding on how to handle bullying and so forth. So helping a child understand that they can reach out to a teacher, a friend, a counselor, their parent, and so forth, with the purpose of being able to help them feel that much more comfortable that there are actually quite a few people out there that they can go to should bullying be occurring. With the issues of cyberbullying, we're encouraging kids to keep the evidence of what's going on. A lot of times delete is one of the fastest responses. But because bullying may continue, we do tell kids, take a screenshot of whatever is being sent to you, save something so that when you go and tell an adult, in a sense, you have proof, because otherwise it becomes your word against theirs with no proof. And the child feels like, well, nobody believes me. It's not that we don't want to believe you. It's that, how do we know that maybe you misunderstood, or what if you're trying to bully this guy, and so forth. So we want kids to know that it helps when there's some form of evidence. Through cyberbullying, we do encourage reporting it to the website, the app, whoever might be sending it through that channel. Even though there have been complaints about, well, do those websites, apps really pay attention? They can block the bully as well, and understand that if they believe that they're beginning to feel overwhelmed, it's okay to seek professional help. It's okay to go and talk to somebody that can help them work through all these social, psychological, physical impacts that they've been experiencing. And so encouraging the child to know that there is help for them is something that's very important for them to be able to know that that is an option for them to exercise.
Alrighty, well, thank you so much for your time today, Mr. Zamora. It was a pleasure to hear your perspective and insight on bullying. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Andy. It's been really good talking to you about this.
Thank you.